Hello, this is Bridget Rao with Divine Essentials. Alright guys, I am exhausted, but I wanted to make sure I got the next part of Manifesting Your Ideal Union series out, which last week we touched and said we were going to do vulnerability because that was the one that was like neck and neck with using the power of attraction in love. So, basically, I have, 5 different ways you can be vulnerable or think about vulnerability when it comes to your relationships. I have these little things on me. I made candles tonight, and my niece decided to decorate me. And I forgot they were there. So basically, I know a lot of people, when they think of vulnerability, they think of it as weakness. And so that would be like number one for me, is to stop thinking about vulnerability as being a weakness, because it doesn't have to be a weakness. It's really about your approach, okay? Because I think people can go from one extreme to another with it. It's like, all right, I'm going to be vulnerable, or like, I'm not going to be vulnerable at all because, like, I don't want to be perceived as weak. I don't want people to think something's, like, wrong with me, or God forbid somebody, doesn't accept me. So basically it's, puts people into a place of being inauthentic when they think of being vulnerable as a weakness. Then you have the flip side of that, where people are overly open, or they share too much, or they, like, wear their heart on their sleeve and they give away everything immediately. And it really is dependent upon you and what you've been through and all of that. So, I mean, it's like, dependent upon who you are and how you are, you may want to, look at some things and fix some things before you decide to be, like, completely vulnerable and open, especially depending on who you're being vulnerable with. Because if you've just met somebody, if you're interested in them emotionally, you want to be vulnerable with them, but you also don't want to be like a basket case. So number 2 for me is be authentic, but also be confident, okay? So if you're somebody that, is very insecure, and you think of, like, your physical body, like there's something wrong with your physical body, you could think, oh, I'm going to be vulnerable and open up and let them know that, like, I think that, my ass is too big, or this is too this, or that is too whatever. That's just going to come off as insecure, okay? So you don't want to mix up, vulnerability with insecurities, because I think that's something sometimes people do. Another way that you may do that is by, like, living in your past, or, pouring out to somebody that you've just met or getting interested in, everything that your ex did, or everything that you've been through. You may have been through some difficult relationships, you've been ghosted, you've been cheated on, you've been manipulated, maybe even your parents have hurt you in some way. So you could have, like, a victim story, and that sucks, and that is, your truth. However, you don't want to be putting all your insecurities out there, because the person that you're just meeting or is getting to know you is going to be like, whoa, this person, maybe again, if it's about your body, it's gonna be like, they don't even care, like, they don't see, like, how amazing they are, they are putting themselves way down on the bottom. And then if you go into, like, all the things that have been wrong in all your relationships, they're gonna be like, this person's like a doormat. It's not an attractive thing. So you want to, again, be careful how you're coming across with your vulnerability, instead of coming across as insecure. And then something else I think people may do with this, where they think that they're being vulnerable with their desire, they may decide again to, like, pour their heart out to somebody, be like, I'm so in love with you, you're just amazing, and blah, blah, blah. And if you're dealing with a guy, typically, I mean, they may enjoy hearing it, but it's again gonna put you down here on the pole, because, okay, now they know that you don't really care or, like, love yourself. They know that you let other people hurt you and manipulate you, and they don't have to do anything to try to, get your love and attention, because you've just given it all to them immediately. So instead of approaching being vulnerable in those ways, you want to approach it in ways of being vulnerable, but again, being confident. So, um, number 3 would be like to ask for help. Okay, so good way to be vulnerable is to like ask for help, and you can do this in physical ways, especially if you're a woman dealing with a man. I mean, vice versa, it doesn't matter. But like, if you were to get hurt, or if you have some sort of thing that like holds you back physically, opening up and being vulnerable and saying, could you help me carry this, or could you help me with like moving this big thing, because I'm incapable of doing that myself. And that does show a level of vulnerability, because a lot of people don't. Like I said, some people go to the other extreme where they're like, I can do it all myself, I don't want to be weak. But if you show that you're willing to be open on that level and to say like, I really can't get this, or can you get that, and again, not in a victim way, and not in a like I can't do anything myself way, but in a reasonable way, that's gonna help them, whoever you're dealing with, to feel needed. And that's something that has gotten messed up a lot within the world recently, I feel, especially with men and women, because women, we've been like driven to this point now where we're supposed to be confident, independent, and do it all yourself. I came home tonight with a big huge box of candles that I just made, and I had gone grocery shopping, and I got all these things, and we have paper bags at the store. And I was thinking, I was just walking up, I'm like, this is like the one time that I really want a man, is when I'm coming in with all these freaking bags and boxes, and I'm taking 6 trips and the dogs are barking, and it's like, it would be so much easier to have a man there to just like help, and that's what being vulnerable with somebody is, like to ask them, could you help me, instead of being like, oh no, I've got the 75 bags, don't mind me, I'm going to take every trip on my own, or no, don't get the door for me because I can get the door for myself. The vulnerability and letting like a man kind of lead in that way physically, especially in the beginning of a relationship, would be a good healthy way to be vulnerable with them. And if you had, like I said, gotten hurt or something, you want to express to them and be vulnerable. Like a perfect example of that is, I know somebody who's had, issues when it comes to getting intimate, and that takes a level of vulnerability to express that to someone. Like if you've had any issues, I've had issues in the past where, it was like sometimes painful to have sex, and you may not want to tell them that, but that's actually being vulnerable and communicating and letting them know, so that they're not like, what's the matter with you, when you're like, in agony halfway through, instead of just opening up and telling that person. And again, they're gonna feel like that you feel safe with them, which is number 4. When you ask, and communicate with somebody on an emotional level, it's gonna help them, to feel like that you feel safe with them. Like when you express your needs, when you that's actually number 5, is express your needs. So number 4 is ask for advice, and number 5 is express your needs. So asking for advice is more of the mental and emotional connection, and it shows that you care what they think and what they need. So in those instances, it would be like, maybe there's something that you don't really know all that much about, and you may feel like they do, and it could even just come down to like simple things, like maybe you're thinking about moving, or you're thinking about, changing vehicles, or you're thinking about something that they know about, that you don't necessarily have all of the details with. To ask their advice on that is going to show that you care what they think, and that you're vulnerable enough to say, like, I don't know everything about this, and I can't, just go out and do it on my own. You probably could do it on your own, but it would be helpful or nice to have somebody else's input that may know a little bit more about it than you do. And it's, again, it shows them that you care how they feel about certain things, that, and again, it depends on the level of connection that you have with them. If you just started dating them, you're 2 dates in, you may not, necessarily care too much what they feel about something simple, but again, it starts to build that connection with them when you discuss those things with them in an open way and in a vulnerable way, without being, the victim or very needy. You don't want to be overly needy, like, tell me what to do, I don't know what to do. that's the opposite. You're going too far in that expression. So number 5 with expressing your needs is like what I was just saying. And again, it's building that trust for you to open up and say, like, I'm tired. They may feel that, like, they soothe you, or that you're comfortable enough to express that you're tired and that you can't, do whatever it is that maybe they're wanting to do at that time, or that they just, you just need them to respect your time then, so that you can go be on your own and recoup, do whatever you gotta do. If you are like out somewhere in like a group of people, or you were just like, in a crowded center, and all of a sudden you're getting anxious, or even just little things that make you anxious, you can express those things to them. And that's, again, going to help them to feel like, oh, they trust me. And it's like almost like you're giving off the vibe that they bring peace to you or calmness to you. Because if you separate yourself from like a group of people, yet you're still communicating with them, that's going to show intimacy and vulnerability with them on a different level. And then if you were like, and again, this is more so for like women, because if you were like, a woman that's going to be like walking alone somewhere that's like dark and scary, and you may not typically, want to do that on your own, you could even, again, like, just say to them, it would be nice, I feel so much safer with you there, or I would feel better if I had you there with me. In some way, communicate with them about your safety, helping them to realize that they make you feel safe, okay? And you can do that in many different ways. And I'm sure it will come up in your life. Sometimes when you're driving, or sometimes when you're walking. Like tonight when I was leaving the store, there was 2 people in front of me, and it was late because I didn't leave the store until almost midnight. But there was 2 people, like, they were coming up the same aisle like thing as me, and they stopped, and I stopped, and they didn't move until I started moving. And I ended up like getting my keys out, like, so I could like jab them in the face if I had to. But that's the type of thing that's like, if you had somebody there beside you, you wouldn't feel like that fear. So you could tell that person, oh my God, I wish you were there with me. I would have felt so much safer, blah, 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 blah. Okay? That's a vulnerable thing to tell that person, because it's not every day that people are going to admit that they were scared, or that, they needed help carrying in their shit, or that they, care like what type of car they would get, or things like that. And then I think a lot of this too is like people just have a fear of opening up because they don't want the person to like criticize them. So if you really like this person, you may be afraid like, oh my God, if I tell them like the truth of me, that like I love something that you love, they may criticize it. And that may be based on snap judgments that you don't even know. Like you may think that this person is like holier than thou and does all these amazing things for themselves and other people, and you probably could have them on a pedestal. So in your eyes, you may feel like you're not on a pedestal. And again, that brings in confidence and needing to feel confident in yourself in order to be vulnerable without being insecure. Because that's, again, you just making snap judgments that, oh, if I tell them this about me, they're gonna think like something's wrong with me. Another thing too is that like you could be shameful of stuff about yourself, and then you could feel like they're not going to accept you if you were to tell them something about you or something about your past. And again, when I talk about like telling about your past, you don't want to be talking about things that that are just, you can get there, but you don't want to be starting off by like harping on the past. You try to live in the moment. Don't be so worried about the future, like where is this going. Don't be so focused on the past as to what you've already been through, thinking that what you've already been through is a dictation of what you're going to go through now. Just try to be in the moment, and that will probably take away a lot of the things that you may feel shameful about, or that you're going to be criticized about. And again, if you're freaking meeting somebody and dating somebody, and you have all those fears and those worries, eventually they're going to find out. So you might as well, just be your true self. Like if you really love something that you feel like they may think is weird or gross or whatever, just get it out, because like, what are you gonna do? Pretend that you don't like it for the rest of your life? That's what I mean about, you've got to be authentic and be real, and that's what's gonna build trust. You know, somebody would probably much rather hear from you that you have some like weird little vice or something that you do, that you're not perfect, than to believe some false version of you, which is gonna come across in the energy, and they're gonna realize that something's off with you. And then again, for a lot of people here, probably you would have a fear of abandonment. You may feel like this person's gonna run away, and that could come from people who've run away from you, or that could just come from things that you saw as a child. But basically, those shouldn't be like what you're allowing to dictate what you share and how you open up and how you build trust with people. So you want to make sure that you're able to share your little secrets and share your little stories and the little things that make you you, without being, you know, oh my god, they're not gonna accept me. And also listen. That's a great way to build trust and vulnerability, and allow them to be vulnerable with you. Because a lot of times people listen to reply or listen to respond. They don't listen to actually listen. And if you listen to actually listen, that's going to be something that's probably rare for the person, because again, we live in a society where a lot of people are always just waiting for their turn to speak. And it makes things just not kosher sometimes, and it makes people close up and think about how you're feeling. Like, if you're worried, like, oh my god, are they gonna like me? Are they gonna reject me? Are they gonna think I'm weird? They probably feel the same way. So for you to take that first step, that first initiative, to be like, yeah, I'm a little weird, you know, I can't, you know, stop doing whatever it is. Like, I can't even think of something because I'm so tired. But maybe it's the fact that you're obsessed with wiener dogs. Yeah, maybe you're obsessed with wiener dogs, and you may think that people are going to think you're weird for that, or they're going to reject you, or they're going to, you know, shame you or abandon you. Huh, handsome, high speed. I've got 2 wiener dogs in the chair with me right now. But you're not going to be able to hide the fact that you've got freaking wiener dogs forever, or that you love them, so you might as well get it out there. And again, do it in ways that don't make you seem insecure and ashamed of it. Because if you're not ashamed, like, that's the thing, like, if you feel like somebody else is going to be ashamed or weird or thinks like negatively of you, then you're thinking negatively of yourself. And that's why I was saying you should probably heal if you are having issues with being vulnerable, because it means that there's a lack of an ability to just accept yourself for who you are. And that's the biggest piece of this, is being confident in who you are, so that you can share who you are and not worry so much about how other people are going to deal with who you are. And usually it's us doing that makes people be like, what, there's something off here, there's something weird here, and pushes you away. And it lets all of those other insecurities come out, because you start that pattern of pouring all these insecurities out instead of vulnerabilities out, and people run from you and, or, you know, abuse you in some way because they see you as an easy target. And then the next person you meet, you know, it's the same thing and the same thing and the same thing, and eventually you just start attracting those experiences into your life until you not notice and acknowledge what the issue is, and you fix it. So that's my quick little tips. He's so mad at me right now. What are you mad at? That's my quick little tips for being vulnerable, asking for some help, building trust, loving, just being nice, being comfortable and confident in your skin. Huh. Alright, well, I think that's it. In Renee. Namaste.